So in the last videos, we tuned our game a little bit so she doesn't stick to the walls and she moves and jumps on platforms okay. You watched a video on the whys of animation, some reasons you might animate an object. And in this one, we are going to learn how to trigger and make animations 4 different ways. So when you're done, you're going to have something like this: the bat flying, the spikes shimmering, her walking back and forth, and then something happening to a block when she touches it. So go ahead, get your project open. Don't forget to make a clone of your game before editing this, and then rename it for today's date or the version of the edits you're making today. So I'm naming this February 28th, part 2, because I have this one right here and it's still the same day. So go ahead, do that, and then go right into edit mode. First thing we're going to do is add more objects to our game. That's as simple as clicking on an empty space. First thing you always want to do is name your object. This one is going to be a spike trap. Then I'm going to get the spikes. And if you don't decide what your object's going to look like until after you get your sprite, make sure you don't forget to name it. There we go. And for physics, this is good enough. We just want it solid. I'm going to give it a rectangle collision because it's going to cause damage later. The second one we're going to create is an enemy bat. And then for the bat's physics, we do want it to be movable because it's going to chase us, but we do not want it affected by gravity because we don't want it to just fall to the ground. And the circle collider is just fine. Then go ahead, edit the sprite, pixel characters. There you go. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. I don't want that there. And then the final one, if you look, looks like our ground block, but it's not because it has different behaviors than our ground block. Remember, when we touch it, something happens to it. I also made it so I can't jump on this one. But for that reason, we're going to create a new object. And I'm going to call it ground color change. So I know what it does. The physics on it, solid. That's good. I'm going to put a rectangle collider across it. Then I am going to edit the sprite. And I want it to be the same sprite as our other blocks. And I'm going to clone it. Now, I am not adding more of these objects. I am adding more instances of the object. That's what we call them, an instance or a copy. If you look down at your library when you're done, you should have these 6 objects. And notice that these are 2 different objects because they're going to behave different. So get all these in your game, make sure the physics are right, and when you're done, hop back over here. So pause the video. Okay, so now we're going to create the animations, and I'm doing 4 different ones because they're all going to trigger and behave differently. So let's go ahead and start with our player. Click edit, and then we're going to go to edit sprite. Now, some of you may already know how to do this, and that's why I'm going to go fast through this animation process after I do the first one. But they're all going to be triggered different, so it's important to watch that part. So if you haven't done an animation before, what you do is you go down here, the animation editor, and you're going to pick create new animation. And this is for walking. So I'm just going to put walk. That's what I'm going to name it. And then here are your frames. This is very much like Pascal. And your first frame, this is her original sprite. So the first frame, if I go to her characters, is going to be this one where she starts the walk. Then the second one, I want her to go back to this. Third one, I want her to go here. And then up here in the corner, you can see your animation if you hit play. I'm going to add one more frame at the end there. This delay is how long it spends on each frame. So I want to lower it a little bit. And there she is. And I like that. That's fine. So I'll hit OK. Now we're going to go to her behaviors and we're going to ask ourselves, like you should be asking every time you put in new code, when do we want her to walk like that? And we want it to happen when she moves left or right. So we're going to grab a animation block from properties, put it right here, and select the walk animation. Go ahead and do that. Pause the video and come back when you're done. Okay, so you should have made the animation, named it walk, and then selected it in the animation block here. Now you have to look at the inputs here. This is going to trigger the animation. When do we want the animation to start? Well, we want it to start the same time we press down on the motion keys. So when we press down on the key to move her left and the key to move her right, we want the animation to start. So we're going to connect both of these, but we also don't want the animation to go forever. So pause the video and figure out when you want the animation to stop. Well, we want the animation to stop as soon as we let up on the key. So we push it down to start the animation and let it up to stop the animation. So let's connect those. And I'm going to go ahead and move this code out of the way. And when you move a block of code, everything after it moves. It's not the best system. It takes a little getting used to. But here we go. We got something working. Okay, so that's good enough for now. Hit stop, go to OK. Now we're going to go to the bat animation. And for this one, I'm going to let you figure out how to do it. Remember, it is under Edit Sprite because we are affecting the way it looks. And I just want you to create the animation now. So pause the video, create that animation, give it a name, and when you're done, come back. Okay, so I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to create a new animation, name it flying, what the bat is going to do. And I'm going to pick characters. This one I'm going to use 5 frames. So the motion looks smoother. Hit OK. And now let's trigger this animation. So go to your behaviors. We have nothing here on the bat. And let's ask, when do we want it to happen? Think about when you want this animation to start. Well, I want it to start right away. And I want it to stay going throughout the entire game. So if the bat stops flying, it should fall to the ground, but we don't have our bat falling to the ground. So over here, what block do you think we're going to use to start this animation? Well, there's 2 that you could use. You could use the always block and you could use the once block. And the difference between the 2 is this is like pressing a button and activating something and then it doesn't do anything ever again. This is like having a constant power supply. And just so you're aware, this one uses more computer power and it uses more memory because it's always on. So let's just look at what happens between the 2 that's different. So here I got an animation block and I picked the flying animation, and notice that this little button here, loop animation, let's look at the difference. If I go here and start it and then hit play, it's constantly running because it's constantly using power to play the animation again and again. However, what's more efficient is not to use this, but to instead use this once switch to start it and then just keep looping it over and over and over. You get the same thing with less power. Watch this when I hit play. It just turns it on and that's it. So go ahead, get this animated, and then meet me back here when you're done. Pause the video now.